What is the most optimistic music that you can think of right now? That's right, it is! I think we could all use a little optimism right now. It's been a rough year so far around the world, and right now people are stuck at home looking for shows to take their mind off of what is happening outside. Originally, I was going to make a list of the best optimistic sitcoms that you could binge at the moment, but while making my list, I realized half the shows were all created or co-created by the same writer. So today, I want to celebrate the achievements of this man. This man is KenTremendous. Ken is a sports blogger, specifically covering baseball. You can find him on Twitter at KenTremendous, or email him directly at kentremendous@fremulon.biz. In his spare time, though, Ken doubles as Michael Schur, a veteran NBC comedy writer and the creator of Parks and Recreation, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and The Good Place. These three shows have a combined 318 episodes. It would take you roughly a full week without sleep to complete all three, so clear your schedules.
Can television make us better people?
I would say that if television can't make us better people, then nothing can.
Can television make you a worse person?
Oh, of course. Are you kidding? Oh, it's doing that all the time.
Michael Herbert Schur was born in 1975 and attended Harvard in the mid-90s, where he became president of the student-run satirical publication, The Harvard Lampoon. Basically, Schur was being fast-tracked for a career as a New York-based comedy writer, specifically one for NBC. The Harvard Lampoon has served as a talent pipeline for the national broadcasting company, dating all the way back to the formation of Saturday Night Live in the mid-70s, when Lorne Michaels filled the writer's room with Lampoon veterans.
Did you write for the Harvard Lampoon?
I did not.
Is it because you thought the guys that wrote for the Harvard Lampoon were annoying?
This is so bad. A little bit.
Yeah.
Fresh out of Harvard, Schur immediately joined the SNL writers' room in 1998 and stayed with the program until 2004. Schur's biggest contribution was producing the Tina Fey and Jimmy Fallon era of Weekend Update, and Schur won an Emmy in 2002 for his work. Schur left SNL in 2004 to join the writing staff of NBC's The Office in its first season. This adaptation of the British comedy was created by Greg Daniels, who preceded Schur at both the Harvard Lampoon and SNL by roughly a decade. Schur was given a co-producer credit off the bat and wrote one of the 6 episodes that made up the first season. While The Office is now regarded as one of the greatest American sitcoms of the 21st century, its first season, consisting of 6 episodes, was heavily criticized. Keep that in mind for later. Schur has 10 writing credits on The Office and held various producer credits before leaving the show in 2008. Of course, Schur also had a recurring role as beat farmer Mose Schrute.
I'm a war hero.
You're doing great, buddy.
His name's Mose, buddy.
Going back a year, in 2007, NBC tasked Greg Daniels with developing a spin-off of The Office. Daniels turned to Schur to help create this new sitcom. After several months of brainstorming ideas about city-level politics, the project started to find itself once Amy Poehler signed on. Early in pre-production, it was decided that the connections to The Office would extend only to the documentary-style filming as a storytelling device. The project continued to develop throughout 2008 and was eventually titled Parks and Recreation, with Michael Schur leading the way while Greg Daniels focused on The Office. At the same time, Michael Schur signed a long-term development deal with Universal Television, which is NBC's main production unit. Filming on the 6-episode first season of Parks and Rec began in February of 2009, just a couple months ahead of the scheduled April debut. Due to Amy Poehler's pregnancy, the show was unable to go through the normal pilot process in which a single episode is produced and evaluated before the rest of the first season is filmed. As a result, this first season is essentially one giant pilot, and like The Office's first season, also 6 episodes, it was heavily criticized as underdeveloped, lacking humor, and without any heart. Here is Amy Poehler describing the initial characterization of her protagonist, Leslie Knope. She's naive and narcissistic, completely deluded, and completely out of touch with reality. That doesn't sound like the Leslie I know, but we'll get into that. Michael Schur gave the show a personality makeover for season 2. Leslie became a competent, passionate, and engaging leader of her department, and the newfound enthusiasm trickled down to the other characters on the show. While the supporting characters initially showed disdain for both Leslie and their jobs, from season 2 onward, they turned their negativity from the internal office frustrations to external ones, like local politicians and the insane citizens of Pawnee, Indiana. A show about failure despite good intentions became a show about success despite bureaucracy and inefficiency. I'll go more in depth about these characters a bit later. The tonal shift brought new life into the show, and season 2 of Parks and Rec was considered one of the, if not the best sitcom of 2010 by many in the industry. Season 3 kicked things up another notch with the additions of Rob Lowe and Adam Scott. Parks and Rec produced a total of 7 seasons and 125 episodes of dedicated public servants trying to make their world a better place. Parks and Rec concluded in 2015 after struggling in the ratings its entire life. However, it found a second life on streaming, and in 2018 was one of the 10 most watched shows on Netflix. In 2012, Schur and fellow Parks and Rec writer Dan Goor began developing a new police sitcom. Even though this project was set up at Universal through Schur's long-term deal with the studio, NBC passed on the project. Fox eagerly picked up the comedy to be known as Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Schur largely took a step back after the pilot process and let Goor run Brooklyn Nine-Nine, while Schur focused on Parks and Rec. Still, Schur's influence can be felt throughout. Here's what Brooklyn Nine-Nine shares in common with Parks and Recreation. A large ensemble of public servants trying to do good things for an ungrateful city, led by a former SNL star, featuring a gruff, combative, but secretly huggable head of the office, a mix of eccentric co-workers who complement each other's weirdness with up-and-coming talent, and even 2 office lackeys. Both teams battle office politics, crazed citizens, and the general negativity of the 21st century. The similarities trickle down to how the show integrates season-long arcs with episodic hijinks. Strip away the different settings, and these 2 sitcoms share the same fundamental blueprint. Brooklyn Nine-Nine aired 5 seasons on Fox before the network canceled the show. NBC, who almost immediately regretted letting the show get to Fox in the first place, picked up the show, and it has since aired 2 more seasons. Finally, there's Michael Schur's 4-year introspection of humanity known as The Good Place.
I felt like I sort of owed it to the concept of writing to do something weird. One of our philosophical advisors is a woman named Pamela Hieronymi, and she said there's one fundamental problem with your idea, and it's that you can't try to become a better person, it doesn't work. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, it just doesn't work. Philosophers would tell you that it doesn't work. And I was like, well, did any philosophers think that you could try to become a better person? And she was like, I mean, Aristotle. And I was like, great, I got one. I got one.
In the summer of 2015, just months after Parks and Rec concluded, NBC gave Schur a blank check, 13 episodes guaranteed for whatever concept Schur wanted to make. Knowing he could plan a full season in advance, Schur plotted an afterlife mystery with a philosophical bent, with help from Damon Lindelof, writer of Lost, Prometheus, and the recent Watchmen adaptation. The Good Place is very different from Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Whereas those shows featured large workplace ensembles and episodic storytelling, Good Place is focused on 6 core characters in a constantly evolving mystery that challenges the notion of what makes someone a good person. With 53 episodes split across 4 seasons, The Good Place never outstayed its welcome, whereas both Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine started encountering some fatigue around 5 seasons and 100 episodes in. A tight focus on the characters, a linear narrative with no breaks, and an eagerness to apply philosophical challenges directly to the forehead with the same cultural lampooning Schur's been a master of since Harvard, The Good Place is fundamentally unlike any show that has ever been or ever will be. By creating characters so flawed yet so engaging, Schur lets the audience become emotionally invested in the same philosophical challenges presented on screen. The Good Place ended in January 2020, but lives on forever with Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine on streaming platforms.
I think the show's argument, and my personal argument, would be that it can make you a better person, and that's the explicit goal of this show. So again, if I'm wrong, this whole last 4 years of my life has been for nothing.
Michael Schur is an immensely talented writer, but I believe his greatest strength is in characters, how they are created, developed, interact with others in the sandbox. Characters are the engine of any sitcom. If they don't mesh, you will not engage the audience. Schur excels at creating groups of characters with enough in common that they can unite behind a cause, but still quirky enough to create friction within the group while being empathetic enough to be relatable. Because Brooklyn Nine-Nine is run mostly by Dan Goor, and The Good Place is just too juicy to spoil, and I mean beyond the first episode, I can't say anything without spoiling the show, I'll break down the notable characters from Parks and Recreation. Two notable characters, Leslie Knope and Duke Silver. As noted, Leslie Knope started Parks and Rec as an unlikable and infantile character, basically female Michael Scott, which makes sense considering Parks and Rec was first conceived as an Office spinoff. After season 2, her enthusiasm for public service became endearing, but also a double-edged sword. Leslie would be willing to go as far as possible to achieve her goals. The intentions were pure, but her methods could quickly get excessive. However, in the end, her passion made Leslie relatable. Schur emphasized this by making the citizens of Pawnee Leslie must contend with comedically despicable, bumbling politicians, airheads in the local media, Greg Pakaitis, a scheming high school prankster. These and more Season 2 characters, I'm not even going to get into the later seasons, shifted the conflict from Leslie and her co-workers to Leslie, her co-workers, and the town of Pawnee. This allowed every character to grow more organically. Leslie excels in the face of adversity, even if she overextends herself. Her greatest strength is her greatest flaw, and that is the hallmark of any great television character. Let's move on to Duke Silver. Duke is a regional jazz saxophonist with several albums and a cult following. At nights, he can be seen performing in lounges throughout rural Indiana. During the day, however, he is Ron Swanson, the ultra-libertarian curmudgeon and woodwork specialist running the Parks Department and Leslie's boss. Leslie and Ron couldn't be any more different. In fact, the one thing they have in common is how strong they are in their opposing convictions. Ron doesn't believe in Leslie's mission, but respects her unwavering commitment to what she believes is right. Leslie doesn't believe in Ron's anti-government stance and gruff, secretive lifestyle, but she knows that she can always count on him for honest advice at any time. They both strive for their individual ideas of greatness and refuse to settle for less, and that's how they become friends. Schur excels at creating characters whose greatest strength is also their greatest weakness and uses that contradiction to push his characters to their limits, making for engaging, relatable comedy. Of course, this isn't unique to just Michael Schur's shows. All great sitcoms thrive on character conflict, but I cannot think of any other sitcom that has the touches of nuance, empathy, and philosophy that Schur provides. So what's next for Michael Schur? Well, he just signed another extension with Universal, worth $25 million a year for the next 5 years. As part of that deal, he's now developing 3 new shows: an animated LGBTQ spy comedy at Netflix, a sitcom with Ed Helms for NBC's streaming service Peacock, and a Broad City-style dark female comedy for the HBO Max streaming service. It's not clear if Schur is the creator on any of these. It just appears he is helping out as an executive producer. After creating 3 of the most notable network sitcoms of the 2010s, Schur has no interest in slowing down, and I can't wait to see what he cooks up next. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you are staying safe and healthy. Please comment below, what do you think of the programs of Michael Schur? What optimistic shows do you put on when you need a lifter? Let me know. Let's comment below, subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already, and stay tuned for more right here.